Commissioner Apuda, I see you've unmuted yourself. Can I get a quick mic check?
Can you all hear me?
Yes, now I can. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Cummings, if I can get a quick mic check from you as well.
Hi, this is Commissioner Cummings.
All right, fantastic. So we're still waiting on Commissioner...
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Which commissioner was that?
Cummings?
Oh, yes, did hear you.
Okay.
I've been plagued with the computer issues today. All right. And Commissioner Parks is in, and we are currently waiting on Commissioner Vang and Commissioner Miller.
So when they arrive, we'll have a quorum.
We do have a quorum now if you'd like to begin. They just, yeah, I have not heard that they weren't showing up.
Okay. Well, I will go ahead and call this meeting of the Parks, Recreation, and Arts Commission to order. City Clerk, can you please do roll call?
Certainly. Commissioner Parks.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Barraza.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Singh. Absent at the moment. Commissioner Cummings.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Miller. Absent at the moment. Commissioner Apuda.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Vang. Absent at the moment. Vice Chair Dolan.
I'm here.
Thank you. And Chair McCoy.
Present.
And we do have a quorum and we're good to go.
Thank you. We will now begin the Pledge of Allegiance. Will everyone please stand? Ready, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We will start with the approval of the agenda. City Clerk, are there any changes or proposed changes to the agenda?
I have received no changes to the agenda.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Commissioner Dolan.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair Dolan. Is there a second?
I'll second Cummings.
Thank you, Commissioner Cummings. City Clerk, can you please conduct a roll call vote?
Certainly. For approval of the agenda, motion by Vice Chair Dolan, second by Commissioner Cummings. Commissioner Parks.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Barraza.
Yes.
Commissioner Singh. Not on just yet. Commissioner Cummings.
Yes.
Commissioner Miller. Not on just yet. Commissioner Apuda.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Vang. Not on just yet. Vice Chair Dolan.
Aye.
And Chair McCoy.
Yes.
6-0, that passes.
Thank you. We will now move on to the approval of the minutes. Are there any changes or proposed changes to the minutes from September 19th or October 3rd, 2022?
The Secretary to the Board has not received any changes to the minutes.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move to approve the minutes, Commissioner Parks.
Thank you, Commissioner Parks. I do believe I heard Commissioner Barraza, but he was on mute.
Yes, Madam Chair. I second it or I support that we make that motion.
Thank you. City Clerk, please conduct a roll call vote.
Motion by Commissioner Parks, second by Commissioner Barraza to approve the minutes. Commissioner Parks.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Barraza.
Yes.
Commissioner Singh, still absent. Commissioner Cummings.
Yes.
Commissioner Miller, still absent. Commissioner Apuda.
Yes.
Commissioner Vang, not on. Vice Chair Dolan
Aye.
and Chair McCoy.
Yes.
6-0, that passes.
Thank you.
Todd,
Yes.
Can you please make TJ a panelist, please?
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We will now move on to subcommittee reports. This item is a discussion item for the commission and no public comments will be taken related to this item. Does the Cultural Arts Plan Subcommittee have an update it would like to provide to this commission?
This is Commissioner Parks. We'll have an update from Parks staff later in the agenda, so nothing else at this time.
Thank you, Commissioner Parks. Does the Parks Master Plan Subcommittee have an update it would like to provide to this commission?
Not at this time.
Madam Chair, there is a meeting coming up of the Parks Master Plan Commission, and so that means action down the road. So I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you, Commissioner Barraza and Commissioner Cummings. And does the Outreach Subcommittee have an update it would like to provide to this commission? At this time, we have no update that we would like to provide. Commissioner Apuda, do you have anything to say on the Outreach Subcommittee? No, I see you shaking your head. All right, we will now move on to member reports and comments. As a reminder, this is a time for commission members to report anything they feel important for the public or commission to know, but it's not a time for discussion. Commissioner Barraza, do you have any reports or comments?
Yes, Madam Chair, a couple of comments. One, in one of our meetings before, a couple of months ago or weeks ago, one of our commissioners, I believe was our Vice Chair Dolan, made a comment regarding the importance that we should know more about a couple of projects that are very important projects that we haven't heard enough about. And that's the Tower District, the Tower Theater. And the other one is the Senior Citizen Center, the one that's supposed to cover the entire city. I just wanted to suggest or request that we have a conversation about the scope of the project, especially the portion that pertains to areas that are being funded with Measure P resources. I think that's important that we know more about those projects. And other commissioners have made similar comments. I just want to make sure that it gets recorded on the minutes that I'm also making that request, because those two projects are very significant, very important, and they're probably very good projects, but we as commissioners should know more about those projects. So that's one point. The second matter is I want to thank staff for a lot of activity that's going on various community meetings. There were just a couple of observations I wanted to make. The one announcement for the cultural arts, I noticed that it didn't have the locations on the flyer, and it says, visit the website to learn about the location. You know, that's pretty basic. If I read something, I want to know right away if the location is near my district or my area. So I just wanted to make that observation. I know that they're super loaded with a lot of stuff, but I also wanted to suggest that maybe having a master schedule of events would help. And it also, if it would say it's in person or it's on social media or on the internet, that would also be very helpful, because we're creating a lot of confusion, I believe, because there are some community meetings that are supposed to be for existing facilities like home and the other romaine and other facilities. Those are for a certain purpose. And then you have others that relate to the cultural arts. And then you have others that relate to the master plan. So I think that in all this activity, which is very positive, it would be more useful if we would do it in a little bit more organized fashion. So I just wanted to make those observations, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Barraza. Vice Chair Dolan, do you have any reports or comments you'd like for this commission to know?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Apuda, do you have any reports or comments that you would like for the commission to know?
I do not. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Cummings, do you have any reports or comments that you'd like for this commission to know?
Not at this time, thank you.
Thank you. Let's see here. Commissioner Vang has joined us. Commissioner Vang, do you have any reports or comments you'd like for this commission to know?
None, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. Commissioner Parks, do you have any reports or comments you'd like for the commission to know?
Not at this time, thank you.
Thank you. I just want to say kudos to city staff, park staff. There's a lot of activity going on in the month of October for our youth to get involved in certain things for Halloween, sports and things like that. And it's just really good to see that on all the social media platforms that the city of Fresno and the Parks Department have. I've been sharing them every time I see them. And it's just really good to see that type of activity going on to keep our youth engaged and to have them channel their energy into something positive. So kudos to the staff. We will now move on to city administration and park staff reports and comments. Does anyone from the administration have any reports or comments for the commission?
None this evening, thank you.
Thank you, TJ. Does anyone from the park staff have any reports or comments for the commission?
Chair McCoy, Aaron Aguirre, Parks Director, thank you for that compliment. Staff is working hard, providing plenty of activities for our youth. So appreciate that. Kudos to the staff that's out there working hard. So thank you.
Thank you. All right, we will now move on to unscheduled communication. Would any member of the public like to speak on any issues within the jurisdiction of the commission? You will have up to 3 minutes. As a reminder, no comments will be taken following the scheduled workshop. So now is the time for our public to make any comments they wish regarding that item.
All right, and we do have a couple hands on Zoom, no hands in the chamber, so we will start with Lisa Flores. Lisa, you may unmute yourself and you have 3 minutes to address the commission.
Good evening, Commission. I just wanted to bring up what's happening on Thursday at the City Council meeting. They're going to have a workshop on the master plan of Chaffee Zoo, which sits in the middle of Roding, which it really shouldn't. And one of the things you need to be aware of is they're planning to build 2, not 1, but 2 parking structures, 3-story, that's 6 stories of basically parking structure in the middle of a historic park. This was never brought up at the very beginning when they decided to do their expansion. Also too, the Parks Department, the City of Fresno, and Chaffee Zoo has never been forthcoming with the parking plan for the zoo and the park, because I've been asking publicly for years at City Council. Also too, in this master plan, you will see that they've decided to add an aquarium. Before they, were going to do a little water features with their little otter park, whatever. And that was going to be the extent of it. Now they're going to branch out to do more aquariums. That again was also not in the EIR. So you have some burgeoning issues that are going to be impacting roading, as well as I'm very interested to know the replacement of the trees. How is that going to occur? And also any sort of repaving in the park and traffic. How is that also going to be handled? Because I'm anticipating they're going to come back with a CE or an ND at best. And what I believe from my vast experience as an environmental planner is that they need to now look at traffic modeling and traffic counts and actually do an EIR on traffic and air quality. Thank you.
There we go. Thank you, Lisa. And now we have Corey Wise. You may unmute yourself and you have 3 minutes to address the commission.
Yes, my comment is in regards to fund allocation for new parks or a location for new parks. Is this the place to suggest that?
I'll see if
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Great. There is a undeveloped plot of land on the southwest corner of Ventura and P Street in downtown Fresno. I'm not sure who owns the land, but I think it would be a great location for a neighborhood park or community garden. With the shape of P Street, it is pretty similar to a park that's going in, I believe, on Weldon and Echo in Tower District. I was looking at the ordinance for the weighted index for development in Measure P, and one of the factors was people within walking distance. There's a couple apartment complexes within a half-mile of this lot. City View and Glen Agnes, which is a Section 8 housing complex for the elderly. At least that's what the internet told me. There's also a bus stop right nearby, making it very accessible to, I think, anybody living in downtown. This area has a really high pollution burden because of the proximity to the 41. And there are also, to my knowledge, no public restrooms nearby. So developing a community garden or park with public restrooms would help both of those issues and be a really great benefit to public health in downtown Fresno. Also, working and living nearby downtown, there seems to be a lot of very limited green spaces and limited land to develop green spaces on. So I think that the lot on P and Ventura would be a really great option to solve all of those issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the next hand on Zoom is Brandy News-Viegas. Brandy, you have 3 minutes to address the commission. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. I have headphones. It's hard to tell. Hi. I'm not sure. I don't think I'll be able to be online for the cultural arts plan. So I want to, thank you guys. Thank the commission. I've been picking up on the ways that the commission has been responding to things that people have said in the past, and I as we go into the planning for the budget recommendations in November, I recall what Apuda said with the just listening to what people have been recommending, and that I really appreciate, and the things that were mentioned during commissioner comments, to come back to. I appreciate that, and want to let you know that I was on Fresno State Arts Campus, and I saw the posters for the Cultural Arts Survey, and I really appreciate that work that it is getting out not only online, but physically in different spaces for people to have access. I would love to see that expanded. One of the things that I would want to recommend for the budget, or if it can be budgeted even before 2024, is physical places like bulletin boards in the parks and community centers, so that there's different places for those in different languages, because of the not everyone is connected to parks online on social media, but having that out in the public and amongst in the community is very encouraging to see, and would love to be able to see something where all these the cultural arts plan, the cultural arts meetings coming up, which I appreciate, and other public meetings can be posted within the park space, so to increase accessibility to these meetings, as well as a place where information about warming centers and cooling centers could be posted. So I'd ask for consideration of those things. And I feel like there was something else I was going to mention, and my brain flipped on it regarding those. I do want to recommend, since I won't be there, but we'll send more access to things like water filling stations and whatnot. But I forgot I had another thing on here, but want to, very much thank you for getting that out into the public, and for the greater accessibility in that these are providing. Oh, also the thing I wanted to say is they mentioned about all the activities going on in the parks, and I've been seeing those on Instagram, and really appreciate the ways that the parks is been using social media to share about their science and as well as and other little lessons, as well as the community events. Thank you.
Thank you. And if there's anyone else who would like to address the commission, now's the time to raise your digital hand. And we have no more speakers on Zoom and no more speakers in the chamber.
Thank you. We will now move on to workshops. ID number 22-1607, workshop regarding the parks, after-school recreation and community services, Department and Public Works Department budget preparation, for fiscal year 2024. Would someone from the Parks Department or Public Works Department please begin the presentation?
Commissioner McCoy, are you able to see my screen here?
Yes, I am.
Perfect. Good evening, Chair McCoy, members of the commission, Aaron Aguirre, Parks Director. Tonight's presentation will be the fiscal year 24 Parks After School Recreation and Community Services, as well as Public Works budget presentation for your consideration the upcoming fiscal year. So tonight's presentation, two purposes, or a purpose and a goal. The two items we want to achieve tonight for the commission and the community. We want to review the information related to the parks FY24 budget needs, parks and public works. Tonight's hope and goal is to receive motions from the commission for funding for FY24. Those budget motions and recommendations, again, are due November 21st. So we are getting close to that date. I believe we have two meetings between now and the November 21st date. So want to make sure we get that out and remind everybody what the goals are. Some examples of motions that we posted here. Again, City Attorney's Office is on the call, can help with those, but what these motion examples could look like, what we kind of heard in the past, or something similar to what we have here. So motions to have a dollar amount for a fee waiver program for youth sports in the park department. That was one that was mentioned last year. Motions to start a blank program in the parks department. Motions to have City of Fresno build a soccer field or any field at various parks. So those are the type of motions the commission will be able to present and recommend to the city council.
Clerk, we need Brandy muted.
Thank you.
Thank you. So diving into the Parks Department FY23 budget, this slide here is one that you all have seen. This was part of our budget presentation, adopted budget presentation. As you'll see, the FY23 revenues. Again, this includes carryover from the fiscal year 22. Revenues in the 6 expenditure categories, $74 million, $868,000. Out of that, Parks had a chunk of about $55 million, $55.5 million. Public Works, 6.3. Public Utilities, 1.1. Finance, $54,000 for a total appropriation of just over $63 million. How that breaks down, this pie chart represents those dollars. You can see 51% of that budget is Measure P, 37% of that is General Fund with just over $40 million, as well as different funding revenue sources such as grants, contracts, capital improvement, enterprise, and then of course the debt service of $1.8 million. These are the projects in FY23 that were budgeted category 1. I won't go through the entire list, but total expenditure category, $33,297,200. You can see the various projects. You'll see capital, you'll see some operation, you'll see some a variety of projects in that $33 million. So this is going back to expenditure categories 1 and 2. Total revenues for FY23, category 1, 26.8. New parks and facilities, 12.5. Again, this is the highest needs component of the category 1. 50% of that needed to be spent in improving and maintaining our existing parks. We budgeted $13.6 million. We met the threshold there. New parks and facilities, that $6.2 million threshold for the 50% was met with $6.2 million, almost right on the dot. So this total FY23 revenue does not include carryover. And again, the carryover funds were subject to the FY22 highest needs definition. So a list of our inventory, our assets. Here's the highest needs neighborhoods. As you can see, what I'll call kind of an orangish color, that's the boundary, how the highest needs definition was defined. The red area, which I know, I apologize, is kind of small, but you'll see the parks that actually sit in those highest needs, and then the green shapes there are all of our other parks throughout the city. Again, highest needs neighborhoods, you can see on the left what falls within that top 33%, and what parks fall outside of that 33%. So any strike views you see here are no longer parks assets. First Nevada, Airways, Full Complex, and I believe those are the only two on this list. So that's what that strike through represents. As I mentioned, category 1, the various types of money that was spent, highest needs. You have your operations categories, you have your capital. You can see that total $13,635,132. FY23 highest needs neighborhood requirement was met. Category 2, new parks and facilities. Again, budget 2, the category there on the left, your acquisitions, your admin. Here's some of your Bulldog and Six, Citywide Senior Center, El Dorado. The ones that were in highest needs, you can see on the right the money that was spent. Again, getting back to the $6.2 million number, which we met our requirement 100%. Category 3, same with our various categories: action sports, aquatics, Camp Fresno. The training career development, there's a 50% requirement. That entire budget was 2.4. We met that with the 2.6, or 107% of that number for category 3 in our youth and senior recreation programs. FY23 budget adopted motions for parks. These were items that were made from the dais, and some of these were, you'll see general fund as well as some Measure P. You'll see a list here. The Series 1 has various projects at Cary Park, Lard Park, Reedy Park, University, and so forth. Non-general fund motions, these are some of the Measure P funds. You'll see the youth waiver fee that was a part of a council motion. The Fresno Metropolitan Flood Control District joint use. A property acquisition, Sunnyside and Church, future parks to be funded with GGM funds, and then of course the senior fitness to be funded with Measure P, category 3 in parks. So just a list of those motions. So getting into the Parks Department FY24 budget considerations, you'll see on the left the PRAC FY23 recommendations that you all made. The center column is what was budgeted in our FY23 budget, and then the far right column is our FY24 budget needs to complete the projects moving forward. So just going through some of these: Roding Park, we have a restroom design, court light design, court resurfacing, and then improvements that are all a part of FY23. And you can see on the right the dollars needed to complete a full construction of those projects. So restroom construction, court light, irrigation design. This goes back to an old master plan of the Parks Department that they went out, I think it was back in 2016-17, looking at regional park irrigation design. So consideration for the commission to look at funding or making a motion to fund that, and then outreach and park investment plan for Roding Park. In addition to that, we also have Romaine on this list that the commission recommended last year. You'll see the various items listed in FY23, and then the budget needs that are needed in FY24 to complete the projects listed there on the left. Continuing with that same budget motion one, we move on to Frank H. Ball. What was adopted or budgeted was a monument sign, picnic pavilion design, and then various improvements. You'll see on the right what is remaining design and construction to complete that, and then FY23 community engagement for additional design needs. I believe an email was sent out this afternoon talking about the upcoming community design meetings, so that's where that content would come from. Moving on to Mariella Brown, you'll see the various items that were budgeted here and what's needed in FY24 to complete those. You'll see community outreach and redesign. Essentially, that would be kind of a, what does the community look for? What does the community want in these centers? And kind of resetting that facility and what that may look like. Rounding out, recommendation number one is Dickey Park. The $75,000 for the picnic plaza design, and then $430,000 for improvement designs. You'll see no new net funding needed in FY24 to complete those projects. Holmes Playground, you'll see the other 2-3 projects there: restroom rehab design, parking lot slurry and seal, and then improvement. And with that, we'll need an additional $62,000 in FY24 to complete the restroom rehab, and then the FY23 community engagement meetings that will come up will inform additional design needs from the community at this center. So PRAC FY23 recommendation number 2, this was to prioritize funding to the top 5 parks in non-highest needs, and those were Vinland, Einstein, Quigley, Logan, and El Dorado. Vinland, you can see the list of projects that were funded and what's left remaining to complete: the tot lot area improvements construction $875, and then the pickleball construction $1.1. That's the additional funding needed to complete those projects. Einstein, parking lot repavement, and it's actually more of a reconstruction than a repave. Monument sign, and the pool renovation design. So the pool renovation, $385,000 is needed to complete that renovation design in FY24 per your motion. And then last two of the last 3, Quigley. Last year, funding was not allocated for Quigley. FY24 budget needs, looking at a redesign of Quigley based on the Prop 68 grant application that was submitted to the tune of $2.6 million for that redesign of that facility. And then Logan Park, picnic area, restroom roof replacement, monument sign, bleacher design. To complete that, an additional $60,000 to complete the bleacher construction will be needed in FY24. And then moving on to priority 3 from you all in FY23, this was to prioritize funding projects at the following parks: River Bottom, Granny's, Basin XX, Orchid, Rotary West, Pink White, Rotary East, Cary, Alaska, and Pillabos. So you'll notice in River Bottom, we did not fund anything in FY23. For FY24, we recommend to move that to FY25 in concert with the Western Reaches Activation Plan as that's being developed. Granny's, new benches, new security lighting. No new net funding is needed in FY24 to complete those projects. Basin XX, this is a basin off of McKinley and Hughes. No funding was identified in FY23. Moving forward in FY24, park redesign for the construction of that basin would be about $3.2 million based on our latest estimate. So to move that project forward is what we would be looking forward to add that facility into our inventory. Next one is Orchid, tot lot area improvements design. This would be new softball and some other features. To complete that, we're looking at about another $300,000 for budget needs in FY24 to complete that project. Rotary West, same here. No funding was identified in FY23, and recommend improvements be looked at in FY25. Pink White, recycled water design, community center repainting, restroom rehabilitation, tot lot area improvement, monument signs, shaded bleacher design, and splash construction. You can see over to the right the dollars that are needed to complete these projects. The construction of the recycled water main that would come in to feed that park, re-roofing of the community center was something we found throughout the year. Tot lot improvements, adding new softball and other benches and amenities, and then replacement of a shaded bleacher area would round that need off there. And then Rotary East, tot lot improvements and a shaded picnic area design. The tot lot area improvements, additional $925,000, and pickleball complex would be another $1 million for the completion and construction of those facilities. Cary Park, tot lot area improvements, going back with the softball and adding a petanque shade structure in the seating design in that area of the park. You can see the additional dollars needed, $920 for the tot lot, about $235,000 for the petanque shade structure, and the bleacher replacement to our existing softball fields, about another $89,000 to complete those projects in FY24. Let's see, the last two, rounding off LRATCA, shaded bleacher replacement design. This would be over towards the baseball field, and then the small dog park design. The bleacher replacement, about another $400,000. The small dog park construction, $900,000. And then Pillowboat, this is the irrigation turf rehab project that was identified and funded in 23. Restroom roof replacement, and then a tot lot area improvement design. Money would only be needed for the plaza rehab design. This is that area as you enter the park with the tot lot. So about another $285,000 to complete that project in FY24. So moving on to motion 4. This was, this was the fund projects currently in progress. This is South Tower or Broadway and Elizabeth, Van Ness Triangle Park, The Link at Blackstone, Citywide Senior Center, and Bulldog and 6. Broadway and Elizabeth, new design and construction was identified in FY23. No new net funding is needed in FY24 to complete that project. Van Ness and Weldon, 1.5 was identified. FY24, no new net funding is needed as well. The Link furnishings, $200,000. Nothing needed in FY24 to deliver that. And then Citywide Senior Center, the acquisition and design costs. Moving forward, the design will continue through FY24 with the FY23 funds. So the anticipation would be to come back once design is ready with that funding at a future fiscal year date. Moving on, Paul Capriolio Community Center, or as some have referred to, Bulldog and 6, the $600,000 was budgeted in FY23. We are on the verge of opening that, so no new net funding is needed to complete that project. We've got a couple projects here that were initiated through the FY23 budget. Dakota and Barton, there's a design, nothing needed in FY24 to complete that design. And then Lafayette Park, picnic area, restroom rehab. We're looking at another $92,000 to complete the restroom rehab, and then the field lighting construction and the tot lot area improvements, $875 to be requested in FY24 or possibly recommended by the commission for FY24. Again, moving on, Large Park, there was no funding identified in FY23. We do have a need in FY24 to complete the restroom construction, which was part of additional revenues from a different source. Holman, no FY23 funding, but an additional $165 will be needed to complete the lighting improvements there at Holman. Manchester, this is a splash pad design. As we move through design, we anticipate a shortfall, which you'll see there in the FY24 needs about $1 million to complete the splash park construction. Court resurfacing, we have that at various park locations, Vinland, Lafayette, and a few others that aren't listed here. So moving forward, that FY24 budget need would continue on. What that would essentially do, that would be kind of a preventive maintenance and allow us to get through our other parks throughout the city for resurfacing. Flurry, Still, and Striping, various parks, $400,000. This is an example would be Logan Park, went through, added a new slurry still, restriped, and essentially reset the shelf life of our parking lots. A lot of times the parking lots are cracked, have potholes that they've been patched. This is what that would help alleviate and help keep that nice clean appearance in our parks. In addition to that, tree trimming in various parks, $200,000 in FY23. We look at keeping that trim cycle moving along, so that additional tree trimming needs would be another $200,000 in FY24 as a recommendation. Reedy Park, nothing in Measure P for FY23, but moving forward, $195,000 for the completion of the lighting improvements. That's a construction project there. San Pablo Park, no FY23 funds were identified out of Measure P, but going forward, the reconstruction of that, right now, construction estimate looks about $6.6 million. Sunnyside Park picnic area, $9,000. The tot lot improvements around that, softball benches and so forth, you're looking at about another $1 million of needs in FY24. Ted C. Wills, no money was identified in FY23. As you know, the east side of the park, there were some portable restroom or classrooms that were removed. Plans to restore that back into green space and a park for the community. Shortfall of about $1.9 million in FY24. Next, Willow and Bulch, FY23 Measure P funding did not have any funding there, but the tot lot replacement, Willow and Bulch, this would again would be replacement of the tot lot in addition to the various softball surfacing that would be installed. Woodward Park, the Shinsen Garden landscape improvement was identified in FY23. Going forward, while these are separate, they're kind of in the same footprint. Group Activity Center, the rehab and accessibility improvements, ADA improvements around that, and then our maintenance yard improvements in the pickleball complex. You can see the budget needs anticipated in FY24. Bigby Villa, tot lot area improvements, design $110,000. Moving forward to continue with that project and complete that, about $860,000 would be needed in FY24 to complete that. Hinton, you've got the improvements, picnic area, barbecue waste receptacles and tables. An additional $55,000 would be needed to complete that project, which is to round off the turf and irrigation improvement. Sorry, I need to take a quick Maxey Park, HVAC design and construction, that money was identified in FY23 as well as the $250,000 for the South Parcel Incorporation, landscaping and fencing design. To complete that project, you can see the funds there, $350,000 for the South Parcel Incorporation, fencing, landscaping, and then the tot lot area, an additional $64,000 in FY24. Sunset, $240,000, roof repair, park redesign. Center and park redesign, this is one here, again, almost like Mariella Brown. We want to look at possibly reconfiguring, remaster planning. So that's what that encompasses there. Additional considerations for the commission moving forward. We've heard through the community, we've heard through the commission would be volleyball courts. We would look at community outreach and design, where they're needed, where they're wanted, what those may look like. Highway city design, accessibility improvements to the parking, doors, path of travel. I know somebody mentioned early on the activity they're seeing in our science center. We do have a great center out there, and it would be to make that those improvements to eliminate any barriers from future guests to the site, as well as a monument sign. Softball repair, Inspiration and Todd Beamer both have softball. This is that spongy surface around our tot lot. It's gotten up there in age. You can see the cost to replace them again. Again, this isn't a full replacement. A lot of this is just the repair of what's kind of deteriorated over time. Another item that's come up throughout various community meetings, field hockey. We'd recommend some community outreach and design efforts in regards to field hockey. Cricket field, community outreach and design. That's something that we have heard loud and clear from the community. And just this past week started our first cricket league out of Inspiration to a great fans were out there. A lot of great families, a lot of great people, and the energy was great. So Woodward Park, this goes back to, I mentioned earlier with Roding Park. This is the irrigation improvement. Woodward Park is an older aging system. portions of the park are without irrigation, dedicated irrigation system. So the $5 million would be to get going with some of that design and some of that construction. And then an accessible parking assessment out at Woodward Park. A lot of areas are lacking some of the ADA needs, so that would be a consideration for the commission to look into. And then recommendation 5, fund the development of the new parks and areas shown as new park priority areas on Exhibit A, as adopted by the commission on February 7th, 2022. So again, FY23 budget, citywide new park properties, senior center, the acquisition design dollars, the Paul Capriolio Center, El Dorado, Dakota Barton, and then the highest needs park properties, the Fresno Metro Flood Control Basins, design of 3 basins, and then 5 acres to be identified at a later date for appraisal. As you can see, the Dakota Barton, no new funding is needed. El Dorado is in the same boat. And then the highest needs new parks, the flood control basins, anticipate FY24 needing about 4.1 for the construction of that. And then the 5 acres acquisition design estimate about 2.8, and then acres to be identified down the road, appraisal environmental acquisition of about 2.2 million in FY24. This map is something we produced early on. This just shows the FY22 pipeline projects that are in the works. These include South Tower, the Van Ness Triangle Park, the Link, Citywide Senior Center, Bulldog and Sixth, and Milburn and Dakota. So recommendation 6 was to allocate funds to begin programming for cricket. FY23 adult sports started developing a program utilizing existing assets. As I mentioned, that cricket league kicked off this past Monday night, but going forward in FY24, community design and outreach is something that the commission could consider. As I think we've all heard in various meetings, strong cricket community out there, and something to consider for FY24. Recommendation number 7 was to ensure at least 35% of the Camp Fresno attendees, and 23 were from South Fresno, with Belmont Avenue being the dividing line or defining line. FY21-22 Camp Fresno, we had about 40% of the attendees reside in Council Districts 3, 5, and 7. As we conclude fiscal year 22-23 numbers, we will be able to come back with a result-based kind of map showing where those youth came from. With that, CalVIP, a grant which we were awarded, funds camp programming for servicing youth residing in Southwest, Central, and Southeast Fresno. So the grant funded evaluation will track the community served. That's something we're excited to kick off this next fiscal year. And then Commission recommendation number 8, this was the $300,000 for youth activity fee waiver. Council motion 1.01 was approved for $300,000 for youth fee waivers. The program is being evaluated in 23 and will inform FY24 needs as we continue to develop what that may look like. Item number 9 was a $50,000 for a planning grant to implement a youth program focused on civic education. This recommendation was not funded by council, but the commission could recommend this again in FY24. Number 10, recommend that the Park Rangers program stay under the Parks Department. Park Ranger program is budgeted in the Parks Department, but administered under the Police Department. So the Park Ranger job classification approved by council. Next step are the recruitment and implementation process that we're currently working under. And then again, the set aside funding for parks to work with cricket, field hockey, and volleyball communities. FY23, we had court resurfacing funds in the process and implementing those into resurfacing and restriping courts for multi-purpose. And as mentioned, October 10th, we began our first cricket league here in the city. And then number 12, recommend that the appropriations for cultural arts be limited to what is required to complete the plan, and that the administrative fee be limited to 2% of what is appropriated. Expenditure category 4 funds are appropriated in accordance with the ordinance, and then parks to provide an update tonight to go over that cultural arts plan development. And then number 13, recommend not to accept the parks budget as presented. City Council adopted the Parks Department budget with additional council motions listed in previous slides, and the commission may recommend the budget adoption for FY24. With that, I want to turn it over to Randall Morrison, Assistant Public Works Director, to go through Public Works and their slides on their FY24 budget considerations. So, Randall.
Thanks, Aaron. Good evening, commissioners. I will have a couple slides here to go over for the Public Works Department. Aaron, if you can go to the next slide. Thank you. All right, so Public Works Department, we continue to be a key partner for parks on, all the great projects that Aaron just went over. If it includes park maintenance, project management, construction management, we definitely partner with parks throughout the process on a lot of those key projects. But in addition, within the Public Works Department budget, we also include Category 5 projects and programs. So just a quick reminder on what that Category 5 projects and programs is. It entails 47% of the Category 5 funding includes safe walking and biking trails types projects. 18% of that pot is the San Joaquin River Parkway, and 35% is for street beautification and litter removal. And part of that last category is shared with the Public Utilities Department. Next slide. Just a couple highlights of some key projects that the Public Works Department is working on, some of which are under the Measure P funding program. So to highlight first, in February 2022, the Public Works Department added a brand new crew just for trail maintenance and keeping up with all the trail new trail projects that we're working on, as well as existing trail facilities. In addition, we are working on the Midtown Trail project. We have 2 segments that are under construction and nearing completion. Our Clovis Avenue segment from McKinley to Shields, and also our Shields Avenue from Fresno to First. We have our 3rd segment that is getting ready to start construction along Blackstone Avenue, along the Manchester frontage. And then we have our final 2 segments that are nearing final design, and we'll be moving into construction probably in early 2023. In addition, we have our Southwest Fresno Trails project, which is scheduled to go to construction in May of 2023. We are getting ready to kick off our Lewis Eaton Trail River West project. That's a trail extension along the river bottom, and that is we're just starting design, and that one will take probably till the end of 2023 to complete that design. Also want to highlight the Major Street beautification program. This entails tree replacements and irrigation repairs along some of the major street corridors within Fresno. We have $1.2 million in the FY23 budget for that. And then ongoing maintenance under the trails program, as mentioned, with the additional trail maintenance crew. Next slide. And this is just a breakdown of the Category 5 projects that are budgeted in FY23. As mentioned, we have our trails and bicycle, safe walking and bike trail portion of that. And some of the key projects include the Midtown Trail. We also have our Barstow Protected Bike Lane. It's a Class 4 project from Blackstone to Cedar. That one should be heading into construction early 2023. We also have ATP Trail tree planting and urban greening, as well as our trail maintenance program. Also mentioned the other 2 portions of the Category 5 is the San Joaquin River Parkway O&M projects. We are working closely with some outside consultants to evaluate the corridor and identify key projects for those dollars. And then under the major street beautification projects, we have $1.2 million budgeted for that. In addition, I mentioned the Public Utilities Department. They have just over $2 million budgeted for Beautify Fresno litter control initiative.
Sorry, Randall, can I ask a quick question? What does major street beautification consist of?
So it's primarily tree replacement, irrigation repairs, and medians and along major street corridors.
Thank you.
And then I'll turn it back over to Aaron. Thank you.
Thank you, Randall. Just want to go through the last couple slides here. The Parks Department timeline moving forward. I know we communicated this a few weeks back, and early on in the presentation, I did mention the November 21st deadline for the first set of budget recommendations to City Council for FY24. So once that is achieved, December 2022, the department will identify and submit our mid-year estimates and budget requests. January 2023, we will complete the mid-year budget estimates. And then again, later that month, we'll identify and submit our base budget, capital projects, and new requests. And February of 23, we'll go through and we'll finalize that base budget, the capital projects, and those new requests. And then in March, the department will have a final review of the capital operating submissions and then due in the budget system. And then similar to last year, late May, the mayor will release the proposed 24 budget. We anticipate bringing the department presentation to PRAC with the mayor's proposed 24 budget. June of 23, PRAC you'll have your opportunity to make your second set of recommendations for Measure P based off the mayor's proposed budget. And then again in June of later part of June, City Council will adopt the FY24 budget. And then August of 23, we will present FY24 budget to the commission. So with that, I know we kind of showed these calendars early on, and needless to say, we're approaching November here quick. So after tonight, we have 2 meetings left. So the goal, as I stated earlier, were to get the recommendations from the commission. As you can see, the next meeting is November 7th, and then ultimately the final meeting will be November 21st. So rapidly approaching. And with that, this concludes the presentation. Thank you all, and open it up for any questions the commissioners may have.
Thank you, Aaron and Brenda, for the presentation. Does any member of the commission have any questions or comments regarding this item?
I do have one. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Commissioner Barraza, go ahead. Sorry.
1 second. Commissioner Barraza, I see your hand up. You have the floor.
I'm okay. That can go after our vice chair.
Actually, my hand was up first.
I'm
Oh,
sorry,
I'm sorry.
I didn't see your hand, Dr. Apuda. I'm so sorry. Dr. Apuda, you have the floor. So the order would be Dr. Apuda, Commissioner Barraza, and then my Vice Chair Dolan.
Thank you.
No problem. If y'all haven't noticed, I don't mind speaking up on my own behalf. Thank you, Aaron and Randall, for those really in-depth and complete reports. I first have a comment. Prior to being on this commission, I'd never heard of pickleball. And recently, I've seen that folks like LeBron James and Tom Brady and Kim Clijsters, I think her name is pronounced, are major athletes being very involved in pickleball. And so I'm really pleased to see us listening to the community in terms of pickleball, in terms of field hockey and cricket. As I see those things in the budget, it's very much, as I perceive it, a reflection of you all listening to the community. So I just wanted to shout you out for that. And then I had a couple of questions. Aaron, when we see the progression of design in 2023 and then construction in 2024, we saw that several times throughout the presentation. 2 questions related to that. One, is there an expectation that those constructions will be completed in 2024? And the budget amount, are they allowing for the inevitable increase in cost?
So great question, Dr. Apuda. A lot of those construction projects, some of those take additional time. They will not finish in 24. Like, let's just use the senior center as an example. that's a major project. If that were to go into construction, that does have some time built into it. So most of the projects, our tot lot improvements, our splash pads, those tend to get done in the same construction year, depending on, now again, when I say FY24, we'll encumber the money in FY24. It could bleed into the following year, but the money would be encumbered in FY24. Now, some of like, let's say we're developing a new, let's say it's an 8-acre park. That may roll into a couple different years, but typically if we encumber the money in FY24, that money's encumbered, and then FY25, even though it were to go into, let's say FY25, the money's been encumbered, so we would not have to come back unless we had some need for a change order of something of that nature. A lot of our estimates, on your second question, you asked about increases in pricing. We've built in some inflation factors to some of those estimates, so we have looked at that. So those are things now, unfortunately, that we have to build in and adjust as we get projects approved and move them on to the next stage.
Okay, good. Thank you. And then I had a question for Randall. On the slide where you talked about the safe walking and biking trails, there was a column that said priority network. Can you explain that to me? I don't know what that is and its relationship to the Measure P dollars. I think that slide, yes. What is the priority network? What is that?
Yeah, so I believe, and Aaron, I don't know if you have a better understanding, but I believe that's a portion of the Category 5. It's defined in the Measure P program, similar to the high needs. And I actually have Yvonne.
Hi, I'm Yvonne Diaz. I'm the administrative manager for the Public Works Department. So we have within Category 5 or Bucket 5 of the Measure P funding, there are categories within there. So what we have to do is make sure that the funding, when we budget that we're meeting the criteria of the categories or the various categories within Bucket 5. So based on that, we make sure that we're, falling within those categories. I believe you're still muted. Sorry.
No, my computer totally froze, so I only heard your last 2 sentences.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. So the priority network, I believe, and I apologize, our director was unable to be at this meeting, but he had worked on these slides. I believe with the priority network, what we were trying to identify is within the categories of the funding that are allowed, that were within those categories in Bucket 5.
So Commissioner Apuda, in the ordinance, part of expenditure category 5 says, of the funds made available pursuant to subparagraph B, no less than 25% of the funds shall be prioritized for class 1 and class, I think it's 5, it's Roman numerals, pedestrian and bicycle pathways along quote unquote priority network as defined in the active transportation plan.
Thank you. Thank you all for answering that for me.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner Barraza.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm kind of very interested in the future of construction of trails for South Fresno. I remember when the master plan was updated for the trails, we were told that whenever the master plan was again updated, there will be a greater emphasis on addressing some of the bicycle pathways, the trails of South Fresno. So my question is, what's the status of that, and when will the southern neighborhoods have an opportunity to get some of those trails that we see built in northern Fresno?
So that is a great question. We have several projects that we are working on, as well as some in addition to our ATP plan, we are identifying projects in Southwest Fresno, Southeast Fresno. And so we are continuing to expand that network and go after additional funding, identify additional projects similar to on the previous slide, not shown on this one, but our Southwest Fresno Trail under the TCC program. We are if you go to the previous slide, Aaron. So our Southwest Fresno Trail that's scheduled to go to bid and construction next year. That is one that we've been working on under the TCC umbrella.
Was the master plan already approved, or would there be another round of the master plan for trails, or is that done already?
We have an ATP master plan as active transportation, and that is several years old, and we do plan to update that in the near future, trying to identify funding to update that plan based on some of the recent projects that have been delivered and some of the other additional needs that have been identified. So that is an ongoing effort to improve that plan and identify future projects.
Thank you. The other question I have, Pillowbus Park, I thought was supposed to have a community center, and all of a sudden I don't see anything. I see the improvement of the plaza. Could someone give me an update of if there's something coming down the road that may entail a community center for Pillowbus Park?
Commissioner Braza, we do not have anything in our budget for a community center. I don't know where that was mentioned, but we do not have any funding or any project with that type of scope of work for Pillowbus at this time.
Okay, I'll let you know where I heard that.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
The other question I have, I was very impressed with the community meetings you're scheduling for existing facilities like Homes, Romaine, and then there are a couple of others. Is the number of community meetings that you are scheduling for existing facilities that need to be improved, is that how are you determining when to have those meetings? Are those like the highest priorities at this point, or what's coming up for other neighbors that are having issues with the condition of their existing parks? What's there to come for them?
So Commissioner Braza, I'm going to pass this over to Aldi. She's been working on those. She can speak to that first question.
Aaron, can you go to the previous slide where they first prioritized highest need parks, please?
You know what number of 40 that was?
I think it's the
Early.
recommendation number 1. There you go. So Commissioner Braza, you asked about upcoming community engagement related to Romaine, Frank H. Ball, Dickey, and Holmes Park. So that's the 4 parks that we're starting out with for additional community engagement, based on them being in highest needs, based on them also being on the list here that you all recommended we prioritize funding for. So that's the why in terms of they're selected. That doesn't mean to say that there's not additional community engagement and or projects coming down the pipeline for Mariella Brown, Roding, etc., or any other park. There is, but of course we can only do so much at one time, so we're starting here. There is money in fiscal year 23 for those parks, and so community engagement is the first step in deciding, how the community wants to see that money be spent. If a member of the public or a resident wanted to provide input on any other park or any other challenge or issue they were having, they're more than welcome to come to PRAC at any time and speak during public comment, or they can also contact the Parks Department at 621-PLAY if they have anything additional. In terms of the number of community meetings, so the first meeting that you're referencing that I sent an email on today is a stakeholder meeting. that's essentially the first get together with the community to decide, how do we engage the rest of the community that lives around there? So these are stakeholders that will really leverage getting in touch with the rest of the residents and the community around that area or that park, because we know in the Parks Department, we don't have access to everyone. So we're going to rely on stakeholders to help us get the word out and make sure that the community engagement that we do have with meetings, pop-up events, events at schools, etc., really reaches the community.
Thank you.
Vice Chair Dolan. Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Barraza, were you finished with your questions?
Yes, I'm sorry. Let me remove the arm, the hand. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Vice Chair Dolan, you have the floor.
Thank you. So I just wanted to echo Commissioner Oputa's thanks for that presentation. I thought it was detailed, helpful, and really spot on for this work that we do. Aaron, a couple of questions. You have put specific projects in the various parks. We've run through specific projects. How does the Parks Department set the priorities for which projects will be undertaken and funded in each individual park, just out of curiosity?
Is there a specific park?
I'm just in general, you've got all the parks that we're working on, you've got priority projects, and I'm curious what the process is to determine.
Commissioner Dolan, a lot of what the projects that we are moving forward is a lot of the work that was done in the Parks Master Plan. So that's a really good foundation for needs that were assessed with a lot of community engagement.
Gotcha.
For our existing parks.
Gotcha.
And I think to add on to that, Commissioner Dolan, there are some parks projects out here that are safety related as well. So.
Gotcha. So is that an internal audit around each facility, or was that an outside consultant that came in and assessed those?
These early ones were an internal audit, roof cracking, middle of the year type of deal as we're out on our site. So some of those safety concerns have come up, hot lots and things of that nature. So more of an internal at this point.
Gotcha. And then, Aaron, you mentioned there's an escalation that you guys are putting in there, and given our current inflationary cycle, I'm curious, what are you guys using for an escalation right now?
I'm going to turn that to Mr. Ed Schindler, but I believe there he is.
Sure. Yeah, we for these projects, essentially what we did is whatever comp that we had, so the most recent comparable improvement that we've made, and if we've had multiple, we'll take an average of those and then scale it based on acreage, et cetera, to try to come up with an accurate representation. And then based on what year that those comps are from, then we'll add the escalator. And for both 22 and 23, we used 9%.
Good. Okay. That's a smart number. We may even be underestimating. And then, Aaron, you just mentioned this again, and I was particularly interested in around cricket fields and field hockey. But what does community outreach or engagement in those cases look like?
So I think, Chair Dolan, we've heard loud and clear from the community what parks they want to see these amenities in. So I think rather than just focus on one group, which we kind of heard last time on some issues when we made some changes. So rather than focusing just on one particular need, we want to involve the community that may, for instance, let's say we're going to impact a soccer field, or we're going to impact a softball field. We want to make sure all those groups have a seat at the table to give us their input. So we aren't impacting the group that is out there utilizing that. It's not just one group coming in and kind of taking over. We want to make sure, we're reaching the entire community, not just one focal point.
Gotcha. That makes sense. So it's an active outreach as opposed to just being opportunistic.
Correct.
Got you. And then just one other question, if I might. Randall, I was just curious on that last slide that you showed, there was a $2 million budget for a litter control program with Beautify Fresno. Can you talk us a little bit more about that, what that constitutes? That's a large number.
Yeah, good evening. I unfortunately do not have a lot of details on that item. I know it falls under the Public Utilities Department budget. I was just highlighting that the Public Works Department does not budget the entire Category 5 pot. That a portion of that falls under the Public Utilities Department budget. And I know that that includes litter pickup and other programs under the Beautify Fresno program. But outside of that, I don't know, Aaron, if you have any other details on that program. Unfortunately, I do not.
Yeah, Vice Chair Dolan, we can get you that information, more of a detailed response to that.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And again, I just want to thank you both for your presentations. That was very helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Chair, I am complete. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I have a couple of questions regarding the trails. Just to follow up to a couple of Commissioner Barraz's questions. Can we go back to that slide, please? I'm sorry, I don't remember the number.
No, you're good. Just tell me when to stop. Keep going.
Yes, it's right there, please. What other plans besides the TCC that has been identified in Southwest Fresno for trails? Because I do know that there has been some funding from the TCC, the Transformative Climate Communities Project that took place a couple of years ago that's starting to be implemented. But what other sites or plans to make trails and bike lanes and things like that in Southwest Fresno? We just can't rely on TCC.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I could name a few. We also have a federal grant that we received that is tied to, it's one of our leverage projects under the TCC program. So it's funded through a separate program than TCC, but it's in the Southwest area around the MLK, Church, Walnut, Jensen area, where we have our MLK Park project that we're working on, and also coordinating the community college project, as well as the West Creek Village Development Project. We have offsite improvements around that block where we are installing multi-purpose trail in that area, as well as bike lanes and sidewalk on those major streets. So Jensen, Church, Walnut. So that's one example. We have other projects. We had applied for a trail project and bike lane project along Tulare in conjunction with another program. And we are looking at other, I think we have a complete streets project along California that we recently received a federal grant. So I can follow up and get a list of other projects in the area, but I know that we have several that we've applied for recently received funding.
And what about South Central and Southeast Fresno? Have there been any plans or sites identified to put in trails or bike lanes and things like that as well?
Yeah, definitely.
Do you know those projects offhand, or can you get that information back to us? Because I think that's very important for us to know, since South Fresno has been disinvested for many years. And now that we have Measure P and we have other grants, federal grants and state grants that we can apply for, that it'd be nice to know these projects and how can we help get the community involved so they can give their input.
Yeah, we'll follow up with a list of other projects in Southeast, South Central, and Southwest Fresno.
And another question, how often is the ATP plan updated? I know the Parks Master Plan, I believe, is updated every 3 years. So how often is the AT plan updated, and how is that process? Is there community engagement involved, or how does that go?
So I don't have the exact date. I want to say it's been 5 years or so since the last update or adoption of the ATP plan. And there is no set schedule. It's based on funding availability. And like I mentioned earlier, we are going after funding opportunities to fund that update. And it does include community outreach and engagement as well.
Okay, thank you. Director Gary, I have some questions for you in regards to the parks. Can we go back? I believe it was River Bottom. You said that that would be funded once the RAP plan has, through RAP. I'm sorry. My writing is scribbly. I was trying to write down stuff at the same time.
This one here is correct.
Thank you, yes. What's the update on the Western Reaches Access Activation Plan? Because there was no funding allocated to River Bottom. I know there has been a lot of activity taking place with the revitalization of Camp Cheyenne. There has been residents out there utilizing that park since it has been, that campsite, since it has been a lot of attention brought to that campsite in the past year or so. So what is the update on the Western Reaches Access Activation Plan? Because we just can't rely on that.
Right. So we actually met with the team a few months back and wanted just to kind of, can you hear me, Chairman Clark? You leaning in?
No, I can't hear you. You're very
Kind of underwater, Aaron.
I think my headphones are moving too. So we met with the team a few weeks back and kind of walked the project location and kind of talked through their plan. At this point, we don't have anything there with the Western Reaches Access group. We wanted to kind of hear, they're getting ready, I believe, I'll be correct if I'm wrong, but move forward with some CEQA and environmental reporting, and just wanted to kind of see what we had. But at this time, we don't have anything planned. That's why, we wanted to kind of work through and see what they come up with, and potentially look at FY25 for some budget requests.
Okay, and my other question is, I noticed during the presentation that, and by the way, thank you guys for the presentation. I'm sorry, I just jumped in really with my questions, but it was very informative. And thank you for that. I noticed that the new benches have different allocations to them in different parks. Why is that? Is it because of the number of benches that are there, the size of the park, the condition of the benches? Like, why is it different?
So some of those, Chair McCoy, can be a number of the items you bring up. The quantity being installed, ADA improvements is always a big ticket item in those designs, making sure that they are accessible to all our park users. So it could be a combination of those items you mentioned.
Okay, I was just curious about the different allocation fundings for just benches. I didn't realize that benches were that expensive to put inside park facilities. So those are my questions for now. Before I go to Dr. Apuda, you've spoken already, so let me go to the chambers to see if Commissioner Parks has any questions.
You have Commissioner Cummings.
And I got you too, Commissioner Cummings.
Thank you, Chair McCoy. I do have a couple of questions. I'll try to make it quick. Thanks to all of the staff for putting this presentation together. Very helpful. My first question is actually a clarifying question regarding the fiscal year 23 budget. So as I was reviewing the presentation, I definitely noticed the pickleball funding or funding requests or funding needs for fiscal year 24. So I went back and pulled the council motions listing. So what I'm looking at right now is dated 6/30/2022. And in motion number 1, number 10, it's $1 million for a dedicated pickleball court at Vinland Park. And then there's a motion number 88, and that's another $1 million to fund brand new 8-court tournament facility at Rotary East Park. And I just wanted to clarify, I see that their motions, I think they were approved by council. Did they actually end up in the fiscal year 23 budget?
So Commissioner Parks, this slide 12 is the final motions that council actually adopted. So in the beginning, they make multiple motions and then essentially come to the final day where they approve what they actually want to move forward with. And this is that list.
Great. Thank you for clarifying that. I know I've kind of asked this question before. So what's on the 630 list, not everything from there ended up in the budget. Got it. Okay.
Correct.
On slide number 9, there is a, if you could go back to slide number 9, I see the capital, let's see. It's just over $1 million for Storyland Playland, and there wasn't anything specific in the presentation. Could we get a little bit more detail about how that funding is being used this year, planning projects, what's happening with Storyland Playland?
I don't have specific notes on my presentation here, but Ollie, do you have notes, or Ed?
Yeah, so I'll start off and then Ed, you can add on to whatever I missed. But I know Commissioner Parks that ADA path of travel is something that is going to be something that we focus on. We're also going to be working with the folks that are operating Storyland Playland to make sure that we're understanding any capital improvement needs that maybe the city's not aware of. And then Ed, anything else that you want to add on?
No, I think that pretty much covers it. We do intend in the current fiscal year to do a bit of an assessment out there at Roding, Storyland Playland, and identify what the most critical needs are and make sure that we address those first.
And I think to add on to that, some tree trimming and safety trims that are needed out on the facility as well. Commissioner Parks, a lot of mature trees, and we've done some tree trimming, but definitely have some additional needs in the facility.
Excellent. That's really helpful. Thank you. And then one last question on slide 37. So this question's probably for Randall. And you kind of addressed it, but I was hoping we could get just a little bit more detail regarding the San Joaquin River Parkway O&M projects. So you mentioned working with a consultant to identify projects. Is that what this full amount is planned to be used for in this fiscal year? Are there other things that might be coming along? And what is the timeline on working with that consultant to identify the projects?
So we are working with an outside consultant that will do an evaluation and identify a breakdown and recommendations from that evaluation. This total dollar amount, I believe, was set up for some physical work and projects that can be done within the fiscal year as well as the evaluation. It's not all for that consultant evaluation. So it would be in addition to. As far as the schedule, I can follow up with our team and provide that schedule at an upcoming meeting.
Excellent. Do you happen to know if the consultant contract has been approved by council already? Is that already done, like the consultant's contracted?
I think that it's nearing completion. I don't believe it's gone to council just yet.
Got it. Great. I think those are all of my questions. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Commissioner Parks. Commissioner Cummings, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for a great presentation, Parks Director Aguirre. And I'd like to recognize the investments identified in upgrading irrigation, particularly as related to Roding and Woodward Parks. As you noted, for the funding being requested for FY23, it's for first phase upgrades. I personally think that Measure P is a great opportunity to be able to spur that investment in irrigation that has been needed for years. So it's a great strategy for completing each phase and then moving on to the next. So taking a little bite at a time. And the strategy also lends itself, kind of what Chair McCoy was talking about with opportunities for added funding to putting the city in a position to apply for grants that support irrigation upgrades like these, especially as major investments are being made into urban forest expansion throughout California. And obviously upgrades related to water and conservation and recycling, like what I noted for Fink White, is very conscientious based on the scarcity of water in the region and the commitment that the commission obviously made a year ago regarding the emphasis on water conservation measures in our parks. So I'm assuming that irrigation upgrades, water upgrades, conservation upgrades will also benefit, besides for trees and any landscaping, it will benefit park programming and facilities for decades into the future. Is that about right?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cummings. I see Commissioner, Dr. Apuda, you have the floor, and then Commissioner Vang, you'll be after Dr. Apuda.
Thank you. If you'd like Commissioner Vang to go first, I'm okay with that.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Vang, you have the floor.
Thank you, Commissioner McCoy. Aaron, I have a question with all these great investments that we're doing. Am I allowed to do a motion to do one day where all the parks that we pay to go free for resident? I mean, we do have a lot of funds coming in, and I just feel like just to embrace our community, especially Fresno being one of the poorest cities in America, like I would like to see one day where a national holiday or a day that we pick where all residents can go to the park for free at Woodward Park they choose to, or Story, you know, whichever big parks that, you know, we have to pay an entrance fee. Is this the time where I make a motion, or do I have to go to the city council?
So Commissioner Vang, a motion there, a workshop is not an action item. So there's no, you can't make any motions on workshops.
Okay, so do I have to put this on the agenda?
I didn't catch the entirety of your motion requests. If you want to email me, I can assist you with, you know, helping you formulate something that could move forward on an action item though.
Okay, I'll email you then. Thank you.
Okay.
Dr. Apuda, you have the floor.
Yeah, I appreciate Commissioner Vang's question, because my first question was going to take us back to one of the first slides that Aaron presented when it says that the purpose and goal of the presentation were to review information and to make motions. So based on what you just said, Christy, is that inaccurate?
So I think that, and the Parks Department can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that essentially they were using this as an avenue to provide you information going into November when you would actually make those motions.
Christy, is there anything that's correct, but is there anything that prevents them from making motions on meetings leading up to the 21st?
There is not. It would just need to be under the action item related to recommendations to City Council for budget purposes.
So could that be used as for the purposes of the hearing that's on tonight's meeting?
Correct. You just
The
can't
third
make a
item.
motion during a workshop.
The workshop.
Yeah.
So sorry for the confusion, Commissioner Vang and Dr. Apuda. So you can make motions tonight. We do encourage you, if you're ready and you feel like you would have the support of the commission for a second and a vote, to make those motions starting tonight. As we know, the 21st is only going to be one meeting. So encourage you to write those down, and then in the third item of tonight, be able to make those motions.
Thank you. So yes, Commissioner Vang's questions supported one of the first things I was trying to clarify. So we can make motions tonight, just not in this moment. Very good. All right, so then that leads me to my other question. I have questions about recommendations from fiscal year 23. and their relationship to 24. So for 7, recommendation number 7 on page 31, on slide 31, where it was to ensure that at least 35% of the Camp Fresno's attendees were from from South Fresno. And then in the budget, what you all talk about is that 40%, which is great, were from districts 3, 5, and 7. Help me to understand, does that equal south of Belmont?
So Commissioner, Commissioner Puda, great question. That information was from the preceding year.
Right, that was before.
Oh, 21, 22,
Right.
Thank you.
Yes, so that
Got
was so the upcoming numbers will be represented in the motion. Those are previous year's numbers.
And the thing to acknowledge here is that the CalVIP grant that the city was awarded for almost $2 million has almost 97% of the grant going towards Camp Fresno, with a very strict requirements for serving youth residing in Southwest Central and Southeast Fresno, and very specific requirements for tracking the participants we reach. So we'll have each year, I feel like we're getting better with the data that we're able to provide you all.
Great. So what I'm seeing in number 7 is that one of the recommendations was 35%, but actually in the previous year, you went above that. Is that what I'm seeing?
So the 40% just shows that out of our participants, 40% of them were from districts 3, 5, and 7.
Okay.
And then the 35% was a motion or recommendation last year that had the, what was it, the Belmont, I believe we used, yes, the defining line of being Belmont. So
Belmont,
this year's numbers
yes.
would be reflected in that motion once we tabulate those.
Okay, thank you. The other question I have is, so in this presentation, there are categories where you make very clear these are the needs and these are the dollars that are needed. But then we see things like recommendation number 8 for the vouchers, youth activity fee vouchers. And there's no specific dollar amount recommended. Is that forthcoming as you get your budget ready to present both for our recommending your budget as well as to present to council?
So
the question making sense?
It does make sense. And this 300,000 that was included in our budget this year was actually a council motion. So that wasn't a department driven motion.
Okay. Then let me jump down to the other one that I had a question about, which was 9, which was one of our motions. And that is about the civic education program that we recommended that did not get funded. Question number 1, are you all able to give us, was there any conversation as to why that was not funded? Or was it just not funded without explanation?
Yeah, Dr.
I see that look, Chair McCoy. Go ahead.
I was not a part of the conversation, so I can't really speak too much about that, but I was not a part of the conversation.
And I think Commissioner put it was also challenging to incorporate some of the motions that were made later on. So I don't know if this was specifically a motion that was made in June, but if you remember, that really takes city council. That's past the mayor already proposing his budget. So if council doesn't recommend it, it doesn't grow legs.
All right. And then my last question about number 9, as I would love for us to consider that recommendation again, is I'm trying to understand how it's written here. It says a planning grant to implement a youth program focused on civic education, piloted in Southwest Fresno. That's all clear. And then it says to develop a proposal for community centers in high needs area. That last part is unclear to me. in terms of, are those two different recommendations? That last statement on there is
I think that's,
confusing.
so where they're asking, that would be the deliverable of the planning grant from the way that I'm reading it. So a planning grant to implement a youth program focused on civic education and the proposal for community centers in high need areas. So focusing on high need areas.
So a planning grant to develop a proposal? Or again, that last part still is confusing.
Yeah, do we know which commissioner made this recommendation last year? Cummings, did you? You're muted.
Sorry about that. This is Commissioner Cummings, and I'm very familiar with this particular project, and I made the motion, and it is, that's definitely the deliverable. And the objective is to create an ongoing civic education program in multiple community centers starting in Southwest Fresno. So the $50,000 kind of gets them started to be able to somewhat, from my own words, pilot the program and ask for feedback from the community and design a program that's appropriate for Southwest Fresno to be able to meet the needs of the youth in that area. And then potentially in the future, there would be a full-on civic education program in these areas for any of the parks, yeah.
Thank you. Now I get the statement. I think there's just a word missing. It should probably say, to then develop a proposal. I think that's, am I right? Is that what's missing? That's why that was not clear to me. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Apuda. I have a follow-up question. Can we go back to slide 28, please? So I noticed that we have like volleyball courts, which is great, and field hockey, cricket field. But I do know in Southeast, South Central, and Southwest, we do have a football and soccer community. So are there any plans to take in consideration those communities as well and allocate funding to those communities? I do know that we do have a youth football team that uses Hitton Center as their field in season. There has been times where the lighting has been off while they're practicing and things like that. So have we taken that into consideration for those communities involved in those sports?
Chair McCoy, this would be the perfect avenue to do that. And if you would like to put that in the form of a motion on tonight's agenda on item 3, that would be a perfect place to do it. But of course, we would take all kinds of sports outreach into consideration.
Thank you, Aldi. I see Commissioner Barraza's hand up. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to add to your comment. I think an example is soccer, the fastest growing sport in our city, and it's not listed there as something that should have additional considerations. That might be an example of one area. There may be others that if we want to identify additional type of sports, that we should list them all. So that was one observation. The second item, oh my God. Let's see, okay. The second comment relates to item number 9 that was being discussed a moment ago. And that has to do with that planning study with $50,000 on the west side. And when this item came up, if you could show it, Madam Chair, whoever controls the screen.
Sorry, Commissioner Braza, what slide?
It was item number 9, the one relating to a planning study to create more community centers.
I believe it was slide
32.
31. 32, okay. 31, 32, one of the one.
32. This one, Commissioner Braza?
Yes.
Thank you very much. I think that the point that I wanted to make is that The total cost of that project, when we were when we had a presentation made, was more than $1 million. So the 50,000 is kind of like a pilot evaluation, which the report that was presented seemed like they have already done a lot of studies on this. So I just want to make the observation that the total cost of this project, once if it were to get approved and funded, it will be a lot of money. So it's not just the $50,000. The second point I want to make is that I happen to agree with the way this motion was written, and that is that the study may start in West Fresno, but there are other communities in South Fresno, like South Central, Southeast, that should also be part of this. And by the way this was written, it talks about to develop a proposal for community centers in high needs areas, which I thought the way it was put together, the motion, I thought it was well written. And I just want to make sure that at the end, we want to spread the benefits of these type of projects to other communities that also need these type of centers. That's my presentation, Madam Chair.
Well, thank you, Commissioner Barraza. Are you looking for an answer or a response or just a comment?
I think Commissioner Cummings was the one that I believe made this motion when we had this conversation. And I just hope that since she was one of the sponsors of this concept, I just want to make sure that we all have the same understanding that it is intended to be for all communities in the areas where it's needed, and it's not just for the Southwest area. That's my observation, and I hope everybody agrees with me, or if you don't, that's fine too.
I can't speak for Commissioner Cummings, but I think the explanation that she gave Dr. Apuda was that this was just a pilot program to start in Southwest Fresno and to be developed and to be implemented in all communities. So Southeast and South Central would not be forgotten. It was just that it was going to start in Southwest Fresno. We get the feedback, tighten up the pilot program to be able to implement it across the city, if I'm not mistaken. But I'll let Commissioner Cummings answer.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yes, that's exactly my understanding of the program as well. The pilot is to begin there for the potential of being implemented at multiple sites where it could be most used and where there's funding available to support it. So Southwest, Southeast, South Central is all part of that, for the development of that proposal.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have any other commissioners have questions regarding this item? All right, we will now move on. Yes, Director Aguirre.
Real quick, sorry, just wanted to thank my team for the presentation. We want to make sure we gave you guys a detailed presentation, so hopefully it was helpful, but thanks to my team and all the hard work we put into this.
Thank you. Thank you, team. We appreciate it as commissioners as well. We will now move on to hearings. ID number 22-1661, hearing to provide an update on the development of the cultural arts plan. Will someone from the Parks Department please begin the presentation?
Yes, let me share my screen, just 1 second. And then if you can confirm that you are able to see my screen, that would be great.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Chair McCoy, and good evening, commissioners. I'm Jennifer Solis, Senior Management Analyst. I'm going to be providing an update today on the development of the Cultural Arts Plan and go over what we've been doing since the last update that I provided to the Commission in August. The Cultural Arts Plan Subcommittee, which does also include Lilia Chavez from Fresno Arts Council, have been keeping the Commission informed on our development, so some of this will probably sound a little familiar to you. Just to give you a quick reminder of the timeline, we are currently in the middle of our outreach period, and we have been extremely busy promoting the community survey right now. We will be wrapping up our outreach efforts with our community meetings, and as this timeline shows, that will be through October, but actually the community meetings will go through early November. They'll wrap up in early November. So once those community meetings wrap up, feedback from all of our outreach efforts will be analyzed and taken into consideration as the draft cultural arts plan is developed. City staff and cultural arts plan subcommittee will then review the draft plan, and then that draft plan will be released for a 20-day public comment period, at which point will be brought back to the commission. And the PRAC will also make a recommendation to City Council before the final plan is adopted in May of 2023. We have a multi-pronged outreach approach and various strategies to engage with the community. This all started with a lot of research. Our consultants, NCAP, have been doing a lot of extensive background research since we kicked off the plan in May. This research will help inform the draft plan along with our other outreach strategies. So NCAP has conducted in-depth focus interviews with 16 local artists and cultural practitioners. And these interviewees came at the recommendation of the Cultural Arts Plan Subcommittee through council district discussions, as well as NCAP's research. NCAP and staff also met with all 7 council districts to really hear what was unique to each district as it relates to arts and culture. And as you know, our community survey launched on September 22nd, and we just have a few more days left. So we're in the final stretch of our community survey. The survey does close this Friday, October 21st. And we've really been putting a lot of effort into promoting the survey, and we will continue those efforts to promote the upcoming community meetings. Just to kind of give you a couple of examples and show you a couple of photos of what our outreach efforts are. We have, you can see here, a banner that's hung up at one of our parks. We also have lock boxes and hard copies of surveys available in case someone is not able to access the survey online. And then we also have a bus advertisement on all of our city fax buses, as you can see on the right here. And again, all of our outreach efforts were made available in English, Spanish, Hmong, and Punjabi. And just to kind of highlight all of our efforts, they do include multiple social media posts on Facebook and Instagram. There was numerous emails sent to our parks distribution list and our community service partners, and that list included over 700 emails. We also have community-based organizations canvassing door to door, and then we've posted the flyers on Fresno and Central Unified School Districts on their Peach Jar, And flyers were also posted to all of the Fresno County libraries within the city limits. So that was a total of 10 libraries. And then surveys were also distributed through or during our senior programming at all of our community centers. And then as I showed you earlier, the lock boxes that you saw in the photo in the previous slide have been placed at all of our community centers, various businesses, and then have been offered at different events throughout the survey period. Flyers have also, many flyers have also been posted at various local businesses. And again, as you saw in the photo, we did advertise on all of our city fax buses to capture the citywide ridership during that time, or during this time of the survey. And those were advertised in all languages there. We also have been advertising on multiple radio stations on air and digitally. And that we advertise with Valley Public Radio, Univision, CMAC through the Monroe Review, and also on air with through Hmong and Punjabi Radio. So I don't know if anybody saw, but we did have a quarter-page ad in the Fresno Bee in yesterday's paper. And then we're also advertising digitally with the Fresno Bee as well as the Business Journal. The Fresno Fair did wrap up yesterday, but we were able to promote the survey at a booth at the Fresno Fair. We've also canvassed at Art Hop, and we also will be continuing to canvass at this Thursday's Art Hop as well. And then, so we had the 6 by 4 foot banners hung at 27 of our parks. Again, some more photos for you to see. You can see on our Instagram page. We have pinned all of the community survey posts at the top of our page. Also, just an example of a flyer at a local business, and then our flyer on Peach Jar, and this one in particular is on Central Unified. And then just some clips from our digital advertising on Monroe Review, which is through CMAC, as well as Valley Public Radio and Univision. So as a result of our outreach efforts, we have seen some great response to our survey, and these numbers are as of October 7th. This would be 2 weeks of the survey period. And so far we've collected 1,525 survey responses online. And we, again, surveys were available or still are available in English, Spanish, Hmong, and Punjabi. And the responses that we've seen so far, about 92% of the surveys were taken in English, about 7% in Spanish, and then less than 1% in Hmong and Punjabi. So we are hoping to continue the momentum through this Friday, and we're really excited to see the final results. With that being said, all of the data is still being collected through our survey process, and the raw data has not been fully analyzed. However, based on preliminary data, we are trending to be demographically representative when we compare to the census data. So the last opportunity to provide community input or collect the community input on the draft plan is our community meetings. So we have 4 in-person community meetings coming up next week. So we have a full schedule on Monday, October 24th. We'll have a community meeting at Fresno High School. It starts at 6 o'clock. On Tuesday, October 25th, we will have the community meeting at Roosevelt High School at 6 p.m. Wednesday, the 26th, Edison High School at 6 p.m. And then Thursday, the 27th, will be at Vinland Elementary School. And that will, again, will be at 6 p.m. All of those will be in the cafeteria at all of those school locations. And then on Wednesday, November 9th, we will be hosting a youth-oriented community meeting, and we are excited to be working with the Youth Leadership Institute to implement this meeting. That meeting will take place Wednesday, November 9th at Ted C. Wills, our community center there. And then if anyone who will not be able to make a community meeting in person, we will be having 2 virtual events. Wednesday, November 2nd at 6 p.m. and then Tuesday, November 8th at 6 p.m. So all of these details and location information is on our website, Measure P Cultural Arts Plan tab. But that is really all I have tonight to present to you all. But I do want to thank you for all who have engaged in the outreach efforts. And this effort has really been a team effort, and we do appreciate your contribution in helping, spread the word on our outreach and this plan. So I'm happy to take any question.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, for that presentation. Would any member of the public like to make a comment regarding this item? Am I correct? I think I got lost in my script, you guys. Sorry about that.
No, you're correct. It's
I'm
a hearing
correct.
item. Yeah, so you have to go out to the public.
Yeah, it's late. Normally we're finished by now. I got used to finishing early. You will have up to 3 minutes for this, for your comments.
And we have no hands in the chamber, but we do have one hand on Zoom. Lisa Flores, you may unmute yourself and you have 3 minutes to address the commission.
I have one question. Can I ask questions about the budget and what was presented before this? Because it's just a somewhat technical question.
Unfortunately, Lisa, no, you may not, because it was a workshop and it wasn't a hearing. But if your questions can be emailed to the Parks Department, or you can email it to me and I can try to answer it, or we can get staff to answer your question. But unfortunately, this is for the item that was just presented.
Okay, well then, here's my question for you. If I know some really fabulous artists that are Pulitzer Prize finalists, how do I get them in contact with the arts group that is maybe booking Tower Theater? Because I'm sure they would love to come to Fresno. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. I don't know how to answer that question. I do believe the artists have already been selected to work with the cultural arts plan, but I would refer to city staff or my parks staff to clarify that for me, please.
Commissioner Chair, I don't know if you can clarify the question, but was it specifically for the cultural arts plan or going to Tower? That's what I don't know.
Okay. I think her question was going to Tower, which doesn't apply to this presentation. So Lisa, if you're still on, you'll have to email me about that and I can try to see if I can get that information for you. I'm sorry about that.
She could also speak on the next item, which is specifically related to Tower.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
And
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say we have no more hands on Zoom, and there are no hands in the chamber.
All right. Do any of the commissioners have any questions or comments regarding this item?
Yes, Chair McCoy, I have my hand raised.
I'm sorry, Dr. Apuda. It's hard for me to see your hand raised this evening. I apologize for that. You have the floor.
Thank you. Yeah, is Jennifer still with us?
She is.
Oh, there you are. I couldn't see you on my screen. I'm like, where did she go? Hi, thank you. Thank you for that presentation. And thank you for all that you all are doing to try to get that survey out to the community. I really appreciate it. And I see you all's work. Appreciate the social media presence and making it easy for those of us who are on social media to get that information out to our networks. I do have a question about the 16 artists that you had in-person interviews with. Can you tell me how they were chosen and give me a sense of the demographics of that group? And by demographics, I not only mean race and ethnicity, but gender, sexual identity, and their areas of expertise.
Hi, yes, I can definitely give you an idea of what groups were represented. There is potentially some still being done, so not all of them have been complete. We are still working.
And also remember, how did you choose this group of 16?
Yes. So like I mentioned, a lot of the research that our consultants did, starting from the kickoff of our cultural arts plan, did inform some of these local artists who have, been around for quite some time. But again, also we took input from our council district meetings, also through our cultural arts plan subcommittee. Again, that does include Lilia Chavez on from Fresno Arts Council as well. And then also taking referrals through those discussions of other artists and cultural practitioners. So that's kind of how that played our initial interview list, and then it kind of grew from there. Some of the groups and some of the interviewees represent Art de Americas, Fresno Arts Council, Radio Bilingue, educators at Fresno State, as well as Fresno Unified School Districts. We also have a representative who is a Japanese farmer, and he's also a board member of the National Endowment, Fresno Philharmonic, Hmong graphic designers and artists also. Again, we covered through also Breakbox Thought Collaborative or Collective, excuse me. So we did cover, educators, artists, cultural practitioners, radio, performing arts, music, and a lot of different groups through those interview lists. And that right now is what makes up the 16 interviews.
And are you, do you consider yourself complete with the 16? Or
So
are there?
we have a longer list of people that we have not been able to get a meeting with right now. We will continue to do that through until we get to the part where we're analyzing the draft plan. However, if we aren't able to reach them, we are still trying to reach them through other outlets and other outreach efforts, which is why we like to have the multi-pronged outreach effort. So that's through community meetings, whether they took the survey. These interviews are a little bit more in depth than the other outreach efforts that we are doing.
Outside of Breakbox Thought Collective, I didn't hear any particular folks of Black African heritage. I didn't hear the African American Museum, for example. Can you talk to me about that? Or are you all satisfied with your outreach to the Black community?
So aside from this in-depth interview list, we have worked with the Fresno Metro Black Chamber. We also they've helped outreach at their events this last weekend. They had a golf tournament where they promoted the survey as well. So again, outside of, just this in-depth interview, we are reaching out to as many groups as possible.
I'm specifically asking about the in-depth interview.
Commissioner Kuda, I think it would be helpful for you to send the folks or the groups that you have in mind so we can go back and verify, if, to your point, we feel like they are representative not only when it comes to race and ethnicity, but et cetera. And then if not, it's not too late to capture that. So we'd love your feedback.
Yeah, that would be great.
I can do that. I do have to say, if you would allow me a little bit of critique, but folks like the African American Museum, Real Pride Film Festival, some of these things should be no-brainers, but I will send a list.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Akuda. Any other questions? Okay. Do any of my other commissioners have any questions regarding this presentation? All right, we will now move on to the next item. ID number 22-1600, hearing to review and make a recommendation to the mayor and city council on fees related to Tower Theater. Would someone from the Parks Department please begin the presentation?
Jen, can you stop sharing? Ruthie, would you like me to share the presentation?
Yes, please, if you could share it. I do have it called up though on my computer so I can follow along.
Perfect. Do you all see the presentation or the notes slide?
We don't see anything yet, Aldi.
So weird. 1 second. I have dual monitors, so bear with me. I'm just pulling it to the other side.
Well, Aldi's pulling that up. Commissioners, this is a presentation on the Tower Theater Master Fee Schedule in accordance with the Measure P ordinance. All of the Master Fee Schedule updates go through your commission for review before they go on to council.
Okay, can we all see that?
Looks like, yep.
Perfect.
And good evening, commissioners and staff and any members of the community who are joining us this evening. It's my pleasure to present to you, and I will be brief this evening, a presentation as Ms. Miller described on the potential fees for the Tower Theater. Next slide, please. So for the current fiscal year, the council is required to adopt a fee schedule in order for there to be consistent rates charged to all folks who are interested in renting the venue. And these fees will be located in the master fee schedule and under the Parks and Recreation Department. In addition to charging the Arts, Park, and Entertainment Sports fee of $3 per ticket that's sold, there's also rates for overtime if that's required outside of the scheduled hours that we'll be going through. And all event holders will be required to hold the same bond and insurance requirements as with our special events. We do have a per square footage charge if folks would like to rent only the theater or only the lounge or only the lobby. And so we'll be going through those as well, and the reservation deposit policy. The fees that we'll talk about are set based on historical event volume and the results of the Tower Theater operations over the past several years, and also we'll be allowing for capital maintenance, repair, and replacement. So those are evaluated and worked in as well. We did also look at other fees for similar type events that are currently under the city's purview, such as the Veterans Memorial Auditorium and Sound Arena. Next slide, please. The basic rates for the master fee schedule will be for the events occurring at the tower for outside agencies. These rates will not apply to city events. So we want to be clear about that as well. And that is currently the policy and practice for the other venues that I've mentioned. And the overtime use is, of course, at the discretion of the operator. And we will be requiring the city manager or the city manager's designee to support any incremental overages as well. We'll be charging that overtime at a pro rata charge based on the hourly basic rate. And so we'll talk about those in a moment. Next slide, please. This slide is just language straight out of the proposed master fee schedule. And this is the $3 per ticket charge that I described for the APES, which is the Art, Park, Entertainment, and Sports fee that has been approved for city venues. Next slide, please. These are the basic rates for the theater daily use. And as you can see, we've broken it down into different timeframes. And these were, again, generally based on the timeframes that are for event use at veterans and Soroyan. So we've got a morning rate, an afternoon only rate, an evening only rate, and then some incremental pro rata rates for a shorter evening from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. or slightly longer. And those are just strictly based on the hourly breakdown and multiplying it by the number of hours. We have this all day rate from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and then also an extra long rate from 8 p.m. to 12 midnight. And again, these fees are set on a per daily basic rate methodology. And so if an event were to be span 2 days, then we would double this. For 3 days, we would triple it. But these are daily rates. Next slide, please. We do have a theater use policy, which requires no discrimination and all of the applicable laws that the rental will be subject to. It also describes contacting the theater operator and or Mr. David Rodriguez, who oversees all of our special events, and hopefully having enough resources available for the public to know how they can reserve the theater if they would like, and a human being on the other end of the telephone if they call. We have some nonprofit rates as well, and those nonprofit rates are discounted as allowable by the federal Office of Management and Budget, the OMB, which does support and encourage 501c3s to not be charged administrative overhead. So you'll see that these rates are about 10 to 15% less than the rates, the other basic rates, and they basically cascade in the same format as the basic rates, and they're listed here. I've also just on this slide, for sake of having some space on our slides, included the language about overtime, the language about lobby use or just only, or the tower lounge only. And then additionally, the fee schedule does note that any additional event costs will be charged to the event holder, the person or the organization renting the theater, but those will be strictly pass through only, reimbursement only. There's no additional charge for putting the event holder in touch with someone who can rent them sound equipment or lighting equipment and things such as that. So those are listed as well. Again, reimbursement basis only. Next slide, please. I'm just calling out here on this slide the bond and insurance requirement that is consistent with the city's risk management division, and again, listed not only on the master fee schedule, but on our theater use policy. Let's see, here's the per square footage rate, which does equate to about $3,000 a day for a full day usage for the entire theater, lounge, and lobby. The square footage equates to about that amount if they wanted to go on a square footage basis. And then here's where we describe the reservation deposit policy that's included in the master fee schedule, which is a deposit of $500 per day. And this will effectively set aside that particular day as unavailable for any other organization to reserve. And we do have a cancellation policy. Of course, there is the opportunity cost of setting aside that day and keeping it from being booked by another either promoter or entertainment or a city organization. And so if an event is to cancel 60 days or more prior to the event, is giving us a little bit of time to rebook it, there is the loss of 20% of the reservation deposit, plus if there's any other actual costs incurred by the operator. And then if it's a little closer to the event time, less than 60 days prior to an event, then 100% of that deposit will be charged. And again, any actual costs incurred by the operator, of course, if there's any, and those will need to be authorized or approved by the city manager and or the designee. Let's see, and that is the asterisks there that are noted. Okay, so next slide. Basically, we are making a recommendation to you, the commission, today. That recommendation will be communicated to the city council ahead of the meeting on the 20th. They do have an agenda item ready to go on the 20th, should your recommendation today be supportive of staff's recommendation as described here. And we will we are available for any questions that you may have. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for that presentation. Would any member of the public like to make a comment regarding this item? You will have up to 3 minutes.
And we have no hands in the chamber, and we do have a hand on Zoom. Lisa Flores, you may now unmute yourself and address the commission. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to ask questions. I really do appreciate it. My first question is, in the presentation, it doesn't say anything about if the city is like on a lockdown or cancellation, just coming out of this pandemic. So would a person lose all their money, or what is the fallback position for that? like, state of emergency, pandemic. Then the other question is, I grew up in Tulare County, and my aunt and my uncle used to have passes to the local theater, and they used to take me all the time to see different performances. And I'm just wondering, is this plan going to evolve into something like that, of unique performances from unique artists coming in from out of town and even local artists? Is that a possibility at all? And with that, those are my only questions. Thank you.
Thank you very. Oh, go ahead. All right, so we now have no other hands on Zoom and no hands in the chamber.
Thank you. Vice Chair Dolan, you have the floor.
Thank you. Just a quick question. How are these rates set? Do we do a survey of comparables in the city? Ruthie, I guess that you're on mute.
You're muted, Ruthie.
I'm so sorry, pardon me, Vice Chair Dolan. The rates, again, if you go back to one of the beginning slide, the rates were based on an analysis of the historical use of the theater, the volume, which is about 4 to 5 events per month, and then the results as thereof. And we also made sure that there was enough clearance, if you will, to allow for certain capital maintenance, repair, and replacement. We couldn't do 100% because it just would be cost prohibitive based on the comparison to other like type venues in the city. So we do know that there will be a certain level of cost. What that ultimately ends up being will depend on the proposals from the operators that is currently out. It's being advertised right now, and hopefully we'll get a good number of respondents, and we'll be able to have a better idea of what the budget can and will support. But we did not want to go too far with the fees in order to make it cost prohibitive and comparable to the other event venues.
I'm sorry, so you did not want to make it comparable to other events?
No, we did. We didn't want to make it problematic. I apologize if I misspoke.
No, that's okay. Okay, thank you. That's my question.
Thank you. Dr. Apuda, you have the floor.
First of all, I want to say the fees are very reasonable. I'm happy to see that they're very reasonable. The question I have is related to on your fee schedule daily rates, that very last item. I'm looking at slide 5 at the moment. So that's 8 a.m. to midnight is 1,600? Or is
yes,
that
ma'am.
supposed to be 8? So it's only $100 more to take it from 6 p.m. to midnight.
Right. It was just, again, we were basing it on comparing with the veterans and the sororian, and really the costs are mostly associated with what getting staffing there, getting the theater open, making sure that we've got the appropriate security set up, and, any of those fixed costs. So the additional hours worked out in this fashion. One thing I do want to say in regard to Vice Chair Dolan's previous question is that this is just an initial pass at what we believe will be justifiable and also reasonable in comparison to the other venues. And we will be watching it very closely. And as we get more actual experience, we will have the opportunity to update the master fee schedule, either up or down, or make any additions or subtractions from these line items every single year at this time. And of course, we'll go through the commission prior to making those recommendations to council.
Thank you. You answered my question. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr. Apuda. Commissioner Barraza, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I attended a boxing match at this theater, and I noticed the condition of the restrooms was not very good. I kind of felt that the place needs to be refurbished. So are there any immediate plans to improve the place? And are you planning to use any Measure P money to improve the place? That's my question.
Commissioner Barraza, that question may be better suited for the next item when we're talking about Measure P budgetary items, but this is specifically related to the fees being charged to rent out the Tower Theater.
If I may, Ms. Costa, I just want to note that I did mention on slide 2 that the fees are intended to support, to a certain extent, capital maintenance and repair and replacement. And I don't know if you think that it's okay for me to address it from that perspective.
Sure, you can. I just want to make sure that we're staying within the confines of the item as agendized for Brown Act purposes.
Understood. Well, basically it's no more than that, just that we are allowing for the necessary repairs. Just to stay in the confines. But maybe with the next item, we could get into a little more detail regarding the plans and the budget.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the chambers. Commissioner Parks, do you have any questions regarding this item?
Yeah, a quick question on slide number 5. I'm just wondering if it's really necessary to have so many options for the number of hours. Could it be simplified a little bit? Do we anticipate that the theater would be rented by different groups on the same day? It just seems a little bit complicated, and I wonder if it could be simplified. Like, do we really need a 6 to 9 p.m. and a 6 to 10 p.m.?
So the theater will not be rented to multiple groups on the same day unless there was a very clear delineation that was possible. We typically have event promoters and or entertainment that do require load in and other accessibility that sometimes doesn't allow for there to be the overlap. So that's why I mentioned that we would reserve the theater for the entire day when we do have an event scheduled. Really, the reason why I added these few lines was just to make it clear that there were alternatives that I believe are more affordable for certain groups, particularly the nonprofit groups that may want to come in and use the theater just for an evening, a meeting perhaps, or some sort of a class or some type of an exhibition where maybe it wasn't a 6-hour event, and these are basically just hourly rates as a fraction of that 6 p.m. to 12 midnight range. And I was under the mindset that this would add some clarity for certain groups that maybe didn't need it until midnight, because midnight is not their, just isn't required for them. So we can always revisit that and perhaps make a change, or of course, if it's the prerogative of the commission to make a different recommendation to council, definitely we'll take that forward.
And
Thank you.
Follow-up question to that, do these hourly rates, is it strictly for like the time the event starts and the time the event or whatever it's being rented for ends, or does it also include like the setup time and tear down time? And I'm sorry if I'm getting too in the weeds. I have a fair amount of experience with this recently, working on our event rental program at the River Center. So that's why some of these questions are coming to mind.
The same daily rate would apply if they needed a load in the day before, if they didn't want to strike on that evening and wanted to strike on the next day. So it would be the same daily rate if they needed the access to the theater for any number, a span of days. But the real driver on these timeframes is taken into consideration with the type of event that it is. So if there's a concert and they strike, or excuse me, they load in on one day, it would be 1,500. And then the concert folks probably will arrive around 6 p.m. for, let's say, a 7:30 p.m. concert or an 8 p.m. concert, and then it will go until 11 p.m. and then they believe they can strike before, you know, midnight is up. That's basically the thought behind this. If they didn't think that they could have their folks there from 6 to midnight and really needed to have access to the theater prior to then, is why we added on the additional fee that gives them that access prior to that 6 p.m. timeframe. But it's not full of people during that time. It's really about events set up during that time. So if they feel like they can set up same day and then have their event, we wanted to make sure that there was an option for that as well. And you know, the security wouldn't have to be there overnight because their items aren't in the theater overnight. So there's just a lot of you know, other cost considerations if a promoter and or entertainment can work in one day, or if they need several days, which is usually the case.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
I'm learning a lot more about theater operation over the last several months than I thought I would as well.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions from the commissioners regarding this item?
Actually, Chair McCoy, this is Commissioner Parks again, follow-up question. Do the fee schedule gets reviewed annually, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we can, or you, whoever is responsible, can look at this, you know, within a year or two and make changes. Because so with the on slide number 3, the discretion of the operator, and then you talked about, so there's like bids out for an operator to operate the theater, and once that's figured out, they may have different ideas about how to do this.
That's right. And if they do, we will bring any adjustments that we are needed to the commission prior to making a recommendation to council for an amendment, whether that be off schedule, not part of the annual process, or if it is part of the annual process. Regardless of whether or not there are any changes, we do take the master fee schedule to council every year on an annual basis. And I anticipate that based on our actual results, and sorry if I'm repeating myself, but based on our actual results, we're watching it very closely. And if an amendment is necessary, we'll bring it to the commission next year at this time prior to making a recommendation to council.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear that there will be opportunity to make amendments if need be once the operator's in place, because I can imagine that being a somewhat likely scenario. So that's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Commissioner Vang, I see your hand up. You have the floor.
I'm really glad to see the rate go down because Fresno Unified and I work for Parent University, and we ran the theater once a year. And the rate is usually about $3,000 to $4,000 for a couple hours. So I do want to commend Ruthie because that's one of the things that we kind of like strayed away from Tower. We had to go to Maya because they wanted to charge us for 2 hours for $4,000 in August. So thank you for making those changes because we do have a lot of families who cannot afford to go to the movie. And so we do bring them a movie night that is free of cost. And I'm looking forward to more opportunity with the Tower Theater. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Vang. Do we have any other questions regarding this item from the commissioners? All right, do I have a motion to recommend the fees related to the Tower Theater as presented?
Madam Chair,
Sorry.
go ahead.
I can second if you want a motion, Dr. Apuda.
I guess she was turning it over to me. Madam Chair, I move that we accept the recommendation for the Tower Theater Master Fee Schedule as presented.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Yes, second, Commissioner Vang.
Thank you, Commissioner Vang and Dr. Apuda. City Clerk, can you please conduct a roll call vote?
Certainly, this is a motion to approve the fees as recommended by Dr. Apuda and second by Commissioner Vang. Commissioner Parks?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Barraza?
Yes.
Commissioner Cummings?
Yes.
Commissioner Apuda?
Yes.
Commissioner Vang?
Yes.
Vice Chair Dolan?
Aye.
And Chair McCoy?
Yes.
7-0 passes.
Thank you. We will now move on to the next item, ID number 22-1594, hearing to receive public input on allocations related to Measure P's update to the Parks Master Plan and Cultural Arts Plan and annual Parks Department budget and capital improvement plans. Would any member of the public like to make a comment regarding this item? You will have up to 3 minutes for comment.
And we do have a hand on Zoom. There are no hands in the chamber. And we have Alan McEwen. Alan, you may unmute yourself and you will have 3 minutes to address the commission.
Hello, good evening. My name is Alan McEwen. I am representing the Fresno Area Pickleball Organization. We're very excited that funding for the environmental and design phases for the permanent pickleball courts at the 3 park sites were included in the fiscal year 23 Fresno City budget. In fact, I'd like to take this moment to thank the accomplishment, the City of Fresno Parks Department, the PRAC Commission, Fresno Mayor Jerry Dyer, District 6, Fresno District 6 Council Member Gary Bredefield, District 4, and Vice President Taylor Maxwell. November represents the critical month beginning the Fresno City fiscal year budget development process. I'm speaking here tonight in support for the commission to include the follow-through funding for the construction phase for these permanent pickleball courts as part of the commission's fiscal year 24 budget recommendations to the city council. Currently there are no permanent pickleball courts in any of the 100 plus city parks. In fact, last year, your online survey, question number 4, what facilities are most needed? Pickleball was identified as number 3 out of the 12 items listed. I just wanted to make a couple of points and then I'll be done. This activity, pickleball is a very healthy activity. It's can be played by everyone from school age to children and to senior players. As Commissioner Apuda mentioned tonight, pickleball is generating a lot of interest from celebrities and so forth at this time. In fact, the USA Pickleball Association has announced that pickleball is the highest growing sport in the country at this time. Our FAP meetup site currently has over 1,200 registrants, which indicates that the demand is there and growing in the Fresno area. So it's highly sought after. It's a very good activity for participants and even family activities. Just in closing, I'd like to reiterate that the Fresno Pickleball Group supports the identified funding for the construction phase of the permanent pickleball courts and hopes that the PRAC recommendations will include these projects to completion in the fiscal year 24 city budget. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And we have no additional hands on Zoom and no hands in the chamber.
Thank you. Does any member of the commission have any questions or comments regarding this item? As a reminder, you may want to start making or having a conversation about the upcoming need to make the initial budget recommendations. Was that the right place, Christy? I see you laughing.
Well, that was just a note for you, but it's okay.
Well, I just feel we can start getting our heads turned
Yeah,
because it has
absolutely.
been some recommendations made tonight. So if the commission feels comfortable enough to make those as they ask their questions regarding the presentation, that would be great. Commissioner Vang, I see your hand up.
Promise that's not me. I want to make a motion to have a day free of charge for all regional parks entrance for all citizens of Fresno, like Woodwood Park, Roding Park, Regional Sport Complex. Either like during a holiday or one day we choose, maybe on a Saturday where anybody can go to the park for free. The parking, it is usually $5 per vehicle, and then the senior citizen pays $3. And then during the holidays, everyone pays $7. So I would like to make a motion for an opportunity for our community. We have a lot of fun at Measure P, and I feel this is the place, and I hope I get a commissioner to support me.
Commissioner Vang, I would like to support your motion. Do you mind making an amendment? I do believe that we have National Park Day in the state of California, so I would like to see that in your motion to where residents can attend the park free on National Park Day as well, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. I think it would be a good opportunity for us to bring awareness to our community. And then also our families who doesn't have the means, they can go to the park and they don't have to pay for that parking.
I second your motion. City Clerk, can we do a roll call vote, right, Christy? Yes, okay. I'm getting the hang of it. It's been a year and a half. I'm getting it.
And just
City
to clarify,
Clerk.
for the minutes here, that is one day free of charge at the park during National Park Day and also on National Park Day?
Also on National Park Day, and I believe Commissioner Vang wanted a holiday or something like that, but I let her speak to her motion.
Yeah, I would like to have a free day of charge on, I would accept the amendment for National Park Day to be free for a Fresno resident.
All right, thank you. So we have a motion and a second. May I go ahead with the vote, Chair McCoy?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. Commissioner Parks?
Yes.
Commissioner Barraza?
Yes.
Commissioner Cummings?
Yes.
Commissioner Apuda?
Yes.
Commissioner Vang?
Yes.
Vice Chair Dolan? Are you still on, Vice Chair Dolan? Did we lose? No, I see him on.
He might have stepped away for a moment.
All right, so, well, I have a strange feeling this might pass anyway. I'll mark him as absent, and Chair McCoy?
Yes.
6-0, that passes.
Thank you, City Clerk. I might need some help with this wording for the motion, but I would like to make a motion to allocate funding for the soccer and the football communities to take in consideration of developing programming and implementing those sports in those communities, as well as the Parks Department recommended for pickleball and other sports like that. I think that those communities need to be part of the conversation. So I would like to make a motion for that. Is the wording correct, Aldi?
Chair McCoy, I typed as you talked. The one thing that is not clear is you said those communities. Which communities are you referencing?
The soccer and football communities.
Okay, perfect. So allocate funding for soccer and football communities for developing program for those sports.
And I second that, Madam Chair.
Thank you. City Clerk, can we do a roll?
Chair McCoy, could I ask a clarifying question? I heard the word programs, and I'm wondering if we could make an amendment to that to specify like facility development. Is that what you mean, or do you mean like organized programs?
It can include both, because I know for a fact where the youth football in Southwest Fresno practice at and Hinton Center, there are a lot of improvements that needs to be done at that community center, as well as the park outside the fields and such. So that can be amended to include that suggestion if you would like.
I think if you're open to that, I think that would be good. So something along the lines of allocate funding for soccer and football programs and improvements or developments for courts and facilities, something along those lines.
I'm open to that amendment. I also see that Dr. Apuda has her hand up.
Yeah, I wonder if you would be willing for another friendly amendment, given the conversations from the community over the past year regarding volleyball, to include that sport.
That sport, I believe, was already included on the slideshow that we seen.
Was it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I didn't think it was, because I had wondered it during the.
Just because it's on the slide though, doesn't mean you can't include it in your recommendation.
Got it. Are you okay with the way the motion is being presented, Dr. Apuda?
Yes, if volleyball was already included in the recommended budget, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
City Clerk, can you please do a roll call vote?
Certainly, this is the motion for allocating funding for football and soccer programs, courts, and facilities. Motion by Chair McCoy, second by Commissioner Barraza. Commissioner Parks?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Barraza?
Yes.
Commissioner Cummings?
Yes.
Commissioner Apuda?
Yes.
Commissioner Vang?
Yes.
Vice Chair Dolan? Vice Chair Dolan, are you there? Absent. And Chair McCoy?
Yes.
6-0, that passes.
Thank you, City Clerk. Do we have any other motions that we would like to make tonight? Any commissioners? And just a reminder, we have to have this done, November 21st is approaching really quickly. So if any commissioners doesn't have any recommendations tonight, let's please come back with some more recommendations so we can have something to present to council to take in consideration when they're for their budget. Commissioner Cummings, I see your hand up.
Yes, I would like to make a motion for the $50,000 for a planning grant for the youth program focused on civic education, highlighted in Southwest Fresno, to develop a proposal for community centers in high needs areas.
I second that motion.
And once they're hooked, they can be addicted to hormone.
We have a first and a second. City Clerk, can you please conduct a roll call vote?
The civic education motion by Commissioner Cummings, second by Commissioner Apuda. Commissioner Parks?
Yes.
Commissioner Barraza?
Yes.
Commissioner Cummings?
Yes.
Commissioner Apuda?
Yes.
Commissioner Vang?
Yes.
Vice Chair Dolan? Absent. And Chair McCoy?
Yes. I'm
Thank you.
doing double duty here. I apologize.
No problem. 6-0, that passes.
Thank you. Thank you, City Clerk. Do we have any other recommendations we would like to make tonight? All right, just a friendly reminder that November 21st will be our last time for this year to make any recommendations for the FY24 budget. So let's get our wheels turning and start thinking about what type of recommendations that we would like to make. I'm gonna go ahead and adjourn the meeting. It is 8:21. Thank you for a good meeting tonight. It was very rich with conversation and recommendations, and I feel good about what we just did. So go ahead and enjoy your time with your family and enjoy your day tomorrow. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.